Wolf, and today I want to share with you the secret for CEOs that are winning the war on talent. There's a key that most are overlooking as a business owner. You're likely overlooking this. You very likely may have been trained to overlook this. Think about that. A lot of the practices in business that are standard, that are taught, that are promoted are correlating with mediocrity, not with high performance. Bear that in mind. That was one of the key findings of Jim Collins' Good to Great research, compiled in his book, Good to Great, in the 1990s. Think about that. Here's one of those things that so many miss because it's like when you hear about it, you're going to go, oh, yeah, in hindsight, that is bloody obvious, but it's not necessarily upfront. And so many could take advantage of this. So many business leaders, so many business owners like you. If you're running a company or own a company that is 50 employees or more, it's a very different ballgame of things you need to do. There's different compliance, different factors that come into place, more complexity than 50 or less, 49 or less, as a matter of fact. And we'll address that in a second. Here, I want to talk to you running a company of 51 or more. When you get even bigger, get above 300, 500, the dynamic changes again. I'm talking to you if you have between 50 and 200 employees. And here's why. You get more than that, things change again. For example, a company I was working with, we were doing a training program for them. They had 300 employees. They were down to 300 from 1,100. So the infrastructure was still in place for a much more complex organization. As the training's going on, there's a knock on the door. Human resources comes in, grabs two people, takes them out, walks them off the property, known as a reduction in force. They were going through yet another layoff. Human resources was leading that to make sure the company did what it was supposed to, right? It was a compliance issue. Human resources has the company's back on things like that. A little bit smaller company, if your size company, 50 to 100, 51 to 100, there's a reason, because when you get to 50, when you get to 51, you have some new requirements like providing health insurance and some of the things you have to do under law. Makes it more expensive, makes it more complicated, requires more skills in certain areas that not necessarily your primary gift as the owner, right? Or as the CEO of the company. So what do? You rely on a professional. Now, if you have, now hold that thought, if you have 30-ish employees, you need to be thinking about professional assistance and start looking for ways to bring somebody on board that can help you with recruiting. If you're going to have any chance of scaling, you need that professional help. Here's why. Because what CEOs of mid-sized companies know that CEOs and owners of small companies often miss is human resources is an incredibly valuable advisor. And this is what elite performing CEOs understand. They make sure that they're looking to human resources, the professional. Think about it. What is human resources really about? Most of the time, and this is something that I got from B school, is human resources is really about compliance and administration. That is the way human resources gets treated by most executives, by most CEOs, by most business owners. It's there to help with compliance, keep you out of trouble, right? And to run administrative things, shared services, they're called in big companies, right? Like accounting functions, finance. A lot of times that falls under human resources in a smaller organization. It gets bigger, then you've got a CFO that's running that. Or human resources is part of the CFO's organization. Administrative functions, right? That is not the way to deal with your human resources if you want to win the war on talent. And the CEOs that are winning the war on talent, the elite performers, know this. They have a human resources professional on the team that is all about talent management, that is all about understanding how that fits together in the business, how to recruit without overpaying, because money is not enough. Money is not enough. It's not about just paying top dollar. Can't underpay top talent. And that's for certain. Money is not sufficient to buy the talent that you need. Human resources understands that. The human resources professional you need on your team understands that. I was thinking about here's what got me thinking about this today. This is what got me on this topic today. I had a fantastic conversation this morning with a consummate human resources professional. Would love to have him on my team any day of the week. Represents the kind of perspective that is needed because this is somebody that knew the business case, understood the business, understood how the pieces fit together, understood how to work in an advisory and coaching capacity to the executive team, but also understood talent management, talent development, the business case for talent development, not just compliance and administration. Understood the psychology of being an advisor, the psychology of what makes good teams, what makes high performing teams. There's a very big difference between a good team and an elite high performing team. And it is all what's going on right here between it because the skill sets aren't that different between good and super high performing, or what Jim Collins called good to great. Highly recommend that book, by the way. If it's not on your shelf, that's something you should have and restudy on a regular basis. Now, are you utilizing your human resources professional in that light as an advisor? If you are, good for you. You are in the top 5, top 1% on perspective of how to have human resources effectively part of your team. Does your human resources professional have the ability to make the business case? Do they understand the business part? Because many human resources professionals are unfortunately brought up through a training regime, through an educational program that doesn't deal with that. One of the reasons they're so focused on compliance is that's what they get fed in the educational environment. That's not what you need on your team. You need someone who can work with you on business strategy, can work with you on talent strategy, that understands the business case behind investing training, understands the business case, understands what training that is effective looks like, people development, because there's two problems with the war on talent. The first is recruiting the talent that you need, right? You already know that. We've been hearing about that in the news for 18 months now, about how people are quitting, yada, 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 yada. Okay, it is a challenge to recruit the people that you need, the top talent, because they have options. And most companies are geared towards hiring, not recruiting. Just think about that. Do you hire? Do you put an ad out, see what comes in, and then pick from the ones that are going, oh, me, pick me. Here's my resume. Don't do that. Work with your human resources professional who needs to be somebody that has the ability to recruit like an NFL draft pick, right? You want to be first round. You want to be picking from the first round in the NFL draft. It's National Football League if you're not familiar with NFL. Hope you are. Oh, man, I hope you are. So why? Because you are picking the best. You are bringing in someone that has options to go somewhere else. They need to want to be on your team as well. You want people that are so good, they don't have to work for you because they can pick where they want to go as well. They could go free agent if they wanted. That's recruiting. Saying this is what we need, pursuing it and finding the people that have that and are so good at it that there are other people that want that. They have options. Now that creates the second problem. The people that are on your team, that you need on your team, that you want on your team, that are your company's future, have options also. How do you take care of them? Your human resources professional is a key advisor in making that happen. They can't do it alone. It's team effort, right? It's like everything else in your company. It's a team effort. Really big companies, they have, massive, like a company I worked for had over 65,000 employees just in North America. Had its own massive training university system, if you will. Smaller companies don't do that, but they do provide some in-house training or perhaps a stipend to go train. Small companies that I worked for, it was hard to get the vacation time to go to training I paid for myself. But I did that. I invested in my training continually, heavily. Many years I used my 2 weeks vacation that I had, or if I stayed with the company long enough to get to 3, that was rare, moved around a lot, whole nother story for another time. That went into training. Part of it or all of it went into going to a workshop, to a webinar. to limiting what I could do, managing my schedule during the day so that I could get to that after work class at UCLA Extension in West LA, which, depending on where I was working, would mean driving an hour to get to the university to take a 3-hour class and then drive an hour home because it's out of my way. You want people like that working for you? Or you want the people that are like, I'm never opening a book again now that I'm out of school? Think about that. And what's the business case on that? Again, your human resources professionals need to be able to make the business case, which reminds me of a case study that my alma mater had. And this goes back 20 years at least, where they had a case study-ish. It was case study light that they featured in one of the alumni publications about two of our graduate school of business, now known as the Grazia Deal School of Business, by the way, but from the graduate school of business at Pepperdine, that had, instead of going the typical consulting route, because they had graduated with masters in organizational development, very much. In fact, I almost switched from the MBA program to the MSOD program, which was pretty new. I would have been in the first or second graduating class from that, had I done it at the time, because I wanted to go into consulting. There were some reasons that I stayed in the MBA program. Served me very well. Topic for another time. These two individuals, in fact, when they finished, instead of going into consulting like most of their class did, most of their peers, unless they already had a company that they ran or already were an executive in a specific position at the companies that they currently work for, they decided to pick careers in human resources because they could see how a different perspective could be brought to human resources, to understand the business case, how things fit together better. That skill that they could have put into consulting for like an Anderson at that time, which is now Accenture. One of the major consulting firms, they had the opportunity to go to work for those types of companies. Instead, they decided to pursue careers in leadership in human resources because they could see what was needed was bringing the business understanding to the human resources function. And this was in the early days of what we now call talent management, right? Because the role of human resources is talent management. Who do you look to win the war on talent? Hopefully the leader of your talent management effort. Hopefully that person measures up. If it doesn't, what can you do to support them? Depending on your circumstances, maybe you've got the wrong person in the wrong seat on the bus in that role. Perhaps they would be better, they would be better served because circumstances changed, because it wasn't a good fit. The perspective on the position is changing. And these are issues that we struggle with, right? When leading companies, you need to shift something. Does the person that's currently in that position fit in the new definition of that position in order to achieve the change that needs to be made to continue to be competitive, to actually become a dominant competitor or remain a dominant competitor in your market? Sometimes you need to move them to another position. Sometimes you need to release them so that they can pursue a career somewhere where they'll thrive better because it's a better fit for them, where they can better apply their talents. It's a hard decision to make, especially if it's somebody that's been with the company for a long time. And when I say a long time, I'm talking 10 plus years. To make a decision, you have to release them because something changed. Either they stopped growing and no longer fit what the company needs. The company grew and grew beyond their talent, their inherent ability. So you need to make a change. You need to look at those kinds of things, right? Because less than 50 employees, it's, the first, before you get to the first 5 employees, that's just a bare knuckle brawl to find out, is the business going to be viable? You're getting some revenue in the door. You bring 1 or 2 people on your team. Okay, now you got a viable company. When you start, getting into 7-digit income on a regular basis, now you're starting to build some team. So as you're building the team, you need to start looking at how do you manage talent. And one of the early things you need to do is have somebody to manage, somebody working with you on the money and in the business structure. That's the CFO role in the big companies. You need that advisory role right up front early. Second thing you need really early is also that talent management, because that is likely not your background when you're starting a company. So when you're building up to that 30-ish, and I say 30-ish because it depends on all the moving parts in your business. There's a lot of things to consider in that, but somewhere around 30 employees, you need a formal HR leader on your team, whether that's outsourced or on payroll full-time or part-time. You need to figure that out, because when you get to 51 employees, you got to have that along with some other things. But you are definitely going to need that, because there's just a whole new level of complexity that happens. When you get above 200, 300 employees, that role radically changes. So the person that is effective at 51 employees may or may not be effective at 300 or 500 employees. They're rarely the right person at 10,000, because the skill set is different as the company grows. Now, I know that 10,000 employees, that's a massive leap, right? Most likely have gone public by that time. Most companies, not all, have gone public, or a private equity firm has bought you and is their headache now, and they have expertise in those kinds of things more, maybe not as much as some might think, but more than you likely do unless you came from that world. Just saying, because most companies start with someone who's really good at something. They're either technically good at something, they start building a company around that, or they see the opportunity for something and they build a team to deliver on it. And part of building the team, which you need to do either way, you need to build a team. It's about understanding what those team members need to have in terms of the right skill set. And if you've got the right person in the right seat on the bus, as the saying goes, dealing with talent management in your company, then you have a highly valued advisor that puts you in very rare air, because most CEOs miss that. They view HR and have been largely conditioned by experiences like I had when, tell you what, when I was working in corporate on payroll as an employee, never saw anybody have a good, in 15 years, never saw anybody had a positive interaction with human resources. It was always something negative. Somebody was losing their job, sometimes their careers, when human resources showed up in an office area or on a shop floor in manufacturing environment or out in the field around customers. There's always some disaster that they were being brought in because it was a compliance issue or administrative, doing cutbacks. Guess what? HR shows up because they got a bunch of pink slips, or someone filed a complaint. Now it's a compliance issue. HR shows up with the attorneys a lot of times, and watch a lot of that happen. So if you have that kind of experience, it's likely that you did if you worked for a company of any size before doing what you're doing now, running your company. That conditions and trains many business leaders like you to have a view of HR that's not really positive. As an advisor in understanding the business case, contributing to the business case of the company, make sure you've got an HR professional on your team that is your talent management warrior, your talent management leader, that helps you, advises you, and also is willing and able to put into motion the activities that you then decide on as a team in leading the company. And you will be so far ahead in being of your competition. You'll be so far ahead in being able to go out and recruit the right people and bring them on, because the business case will be there. You'll be able to articulate it better because of the advice you're getting from your talent management leader. Better making the case for why people should be part of your team and it's the place to work. And even more importantly, you'll be able to retain top talent with so many people moving jobs. Government's publishing statistics that are saying 50% of people are still looking around. And if they see something that looks better than the current job, they're willing to make a move. Doesn't mean they are. It just means that there's a lot of risk in losing key talent, because they're the ones that have the most options. Consider that. Partner with your human resources professional, and you will be part of the rare air, one of the elite CEOs that is truly leveraging the executive team in the way that you needed to in order to compete in today's turbulent economic environment. And speaking of which, this is brought to you today by Adventure CEO. And just as a reminder that we've got coming up on Wednesday, May 25th, 1 p.m., we needed to shift it to accommodate another event. We're getting events too close together. So 1 p.m. Pacific will be a 1 hour complimentary webinar. We'll be having a discussion for a small group. We're limiting this to 30 people so that we can have dialogue. This will be a live and interactive session on how to grow your business despite high inflation. And now with recession coming, Smart money is predicting a recession no later than the end of the year. JP Morgan, many other big organizations that are smart about that because they lose billions literally if they are off the mark on those types of things. But how to continue to build your business, how to grow your business while your competition is stumbling around you. So go to growduringhighinflation.com to register for that because it's limited to 30 people. It will be, you need to register. It's complimentary session. It'll be a great dialogue. We're going to talk about the 5 strategies that you need to put in place that work as a system to succeed despite the economic chaos that you're facing. So remember, today's big thing is the CEO's secret weapon. The secret to winning the war on talent is having a HR professional that you're working with as a key advisor that gets the business case, can bring that to the table and partners with you on developing talent, on developing the business case, and for knowing where to invest money within the company in talent at a time when dollars are very, very scarce. So thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I look forward to seeing you on the trail.